Hi, Yvonne.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, not bad at all. It's a bit frantic at the moment, but never mind.
It is really, really busy.
It
Good
just means
morning. Just to quickly remind you that the recording's already started. It starts recording as soon as it starts the meeting.
I would say nothing that would be controversial, Natalie, I'm quite sure. Yeah, it's just a healthy sign when things are busy.
Yeah.
What's your new post? What's your new responsibility now?
Child Protection Officer for Education for Highland.
Okay, so you'll be reporting way up the line. Yep.
Yep. It's and I do all the training and everything, so
yep. You'll be busy
good.
too.
Very busy.
Yeah. The word Highland is a clue.
Yes. And I'm still doing part of the Highland Cares process, so
Yeah.
but that's good because that's an interest. I'm still going to hold on to the funding side of it and help out where needed, but Angela's mainly responsible now.
That's continuity. Oh, people are flooding in. Hi, Fiona. Sorry, I didn't recognise at the text meeting last night.
No, I know. Not the first time. I've been bumping into people and I've had no idea who they are till they said, oh, everyone's so different in real life.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a third dimension.
Yeah.
It should all come flooding in now. Can't start without Scott.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Scott.
How are we doing?
Just checking my,
We'll give it a minute or two yet, folks. They're still to come in.
Can you hear me? Nope.
Yeah, hearing it.
Yes. It's just I probably will have to leave early. I've got a funeral to go to, so I need to leave about 11:45 if it's not finished. Okay.
Oh, okay, Eileen. No, thanks very much for that. And it's obviously been recorded, so be able to catch up with that if you need to after. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Morning, folks.
Morning, David. How are you getting on?
Yeah, aye, no bad. Hi, folks.
Morning.
Oh, it's Ronnie.
Morning. I hate this part of these meetings. Everybody just sits there.
Okay, well, I think we'll make a start, folks. Anybody else that's coming in can now join us. It's after 10 o'clock. So welcome everybody to the December Southern Community Partnership meeting. Everybody's more than welcome. And just before we start, I'll just go through some of the housekeeping for today. So just remind everybody that the meeting's been recorded and it's available on via the link and on YouTube after the meeting. So just to remind everybody about that when they're speaking. And also just we're using Teams today again, obviously, so just remind everybody if you can stay on mute when you're not speaking, please, and just the sort of usual Teams etiquette applies, respect to raising your hand if you want to ask any questions. I would ask that if you keep any questions till the end of anybody's inputs, please, just to allow them to finish off what they're saying. And also, can I just remind everybody just to avoid using acronyms and abbreviations, please, just to avoid any miscommunication so everybody knows what we're talking about. So yeah, so thanks again everybody for tuning in today, and welcome, as I say. Been a difficult time for us this year. We're still getting over COVID, and obviously we're now into a cost of living crisis, which is caused, it's been really difficult times for folk, and it's going to be really difficult over the winter period. Respect to sort of fuel and food poverty in particular, and Sutherland, obviously we're discriminated heavily because of where we are and because of the type of fuel that we use. So there's a lot of good work getting done in the background, but a lot of people are feeling the pain from this. So without the partnership work that we're all involved in, and the communities, you know, bring to us, it's the way forward. It's the only way that we're going to be able to deal with this. So a lot of good work that we'll see when we get the updates for the inputs. So what we have today, we've got a couple of inputs. We've got one just on the partnership itself. A lot of good work carried out by the SAC team, Natalie and Fiona, putting a presentation together that we can use. And also we've got an input from Sport Scotland, kits about Kits for All. So we'll cover that, and then we'll go into the full updates from everybody, and then everybody can chip in with any questions. So first and foremost, apologies. We've got quite a few apologies today. So we've got apologies, Heather MacDonald, Skills Development Scotland, Cara Donald, Nature Scotland, Fiona Hampton, High Life Highland, Jane Young, Connect Ascent, Councillor Richard Gale for Transport Subgroup, Deborah Knight, NHS Scotland, Angela Echevarren from Highland Council. Angela's going to be taking over from Jackie Hutchinson with the children's plan. And Jackie's putting her apologies today as well. Amanda Wagstaff from Cycling UK, Heather Taylor, NHS Highland, Leslie Collins, Change Mental Health, Anna Patfield, Planet Sutherland, Christine McKenzie, Scourie Community Development Company, Aileen Ogilvie, Laird Learning Centre, Boyd Alexander, Housing Development. Is there any apologies that I've missed? Is anybody else? Big silence as a no. So that's the apologies. The minutes of the previous meeting that we had at the start of September, they've been circulated to everybody. just a quick, has anybody seen anything that requires amending on the minutes? They're obviously available online and they've been shared. Again, I'll take silence as a no. Perfect, folks, that's grand. Okay, as I say, we'll move on then to the first input for today, and this is Natalie and Fiona. Obviously, they've just started with the SAC team, and obviously, when I say SAC team, I'm referring to Sutherland Adaptive and Collaborative Communities. So I broke my own rule to start with there, respect to abbreviation. Fiona and Natalie have come in. They've really adapted to this job really well. They're a massive support to me and the partnership. And people, if you want any advice and assistance, get in contact with Fiona and Natalie for any projects that you're looking to run or any questions about putting things in place, because they're really hit the ground running and they're doing a really good job there. So we introduced at the last meeting the new structure diagram. And we've now put a presentation together, as I say, that'll be able to be used by anybody to explain more about what the partnership's all about and what we're trying to achieve. So I'll just pass you over to Fiona, who's going to just talk us through the new PowerPoint and also some flyers that produced, which look excellent.
Thanks, Scott. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me. I go slow today. Must know it's a Friday. Go. I just get a thumbs up if you're seeing my screen.
Yeah, that's it up now, Fiona, but it's not full screen yet.
Perfect.
Okay, that's great. So, like Scott said, this is just something we've kind of pulled together to help promote the partnership a little bit for people who maybe have never come across the partnership or not sure exactly what it does. It can be quite difficult to explain the partnership to people who've never been involved because its reach is so kind of widespread, and it's quite difficult to maybe bullet point exactly what it is. So we've pulled together a PowerPoint to try and just hit the highlights. So the community partnership for Sutherland works together for the community. It brings together the public agencies, third sector organisations and other key community groups to work collaboratively with the people of Sutherland to deliver better outcomes. And you'll see along the bottom there are the underlying threads that the partnership seeks to address in every meeting that we have, which are inequalities, community learning development, mental health, emotional well-being, repopulation, disabilities and net zero. The partnership is working for Sutherland's future. It's made up and shared by the people who live and work here. They want Sutherland to have a sustainable future, as I suppose we all do. By tackling the underlying threads that impact on Sutherland's residents, we can succeed in achieving more positive outcomes for all. What's it got to do with me? So this slide's about making sure that everybody knows that they all have a voice and a role to play. So the SCP needs your participation to strengthen our community voice. Some examples: you could be worried about fuel poverty. You've found employment in the area but nowhere to live. You've got a great idea but you need some funding. If we know the issues in our community, we can help you find solutions and support you in having your say, getting your voice out there. The partnership also feeds into Highland-wide aims. So the SCP and its subgroup network meet regularly to make shared decisions and find solutions to the changing issues we're facing. The key partners then take this information back to their organisations. You'll see some of the core partners there: Police Scotland, Scottish Fire Rescue Service, Highland Council, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, NHS Highland and the Highland Third Sector Interface. This all contributes to the Highland Outcome Improvement Plan, which is a bigger plan for Highland-wide. And this is just the structure of how the partnership feeds into each other. So the communities in Sutherland are going to feed into the new forums, North, West, Central and East forums. There's also thematic subgroups They're sort of tackling sort of individual items across the county. They all sort of feed into this big community planning partnership, which feeds into the bigger Highland Community Planning Partnership. And we have some sort of feeder groups there, core partners, networks, and the SAC team. So there we go. That's a brief presentation that will probably be used at the area forums just to sort of give an input into what the SCP is. And there's our contact details. That address will get you to Natalie and I. And we've got our website there, which we try to keep up to date. Let me just... We've also made a couple of sort of flyers about what partnership work's all about. This one is just a brief sort of how communities can be involved in their community partnership groups and what our aims are. We're going to take this sort of around with us to maybe community events that we can go and promote the work of the partnership a little better. And we also have this flyer, which again just says a little bit about the SCP and focuses more on Natalie and I's project, the Aspiring Communities Project, and what we can do to help groups in the area. So we can help link groups together that are maybe working on similar projects. We can advertise and share and promote their activities and events. We'll help you find sources of funding. We get a lot of sort of emails in about new funding opportunities. So please come to us if you're looking for funding and you're not sure where to go. And if you need any help in filling in that paperwork, we'd be glad to see if we could find resources for you. Here we go. I think that's me, Scott.
Yeah, no.
Stop sharing my screen.
Thanks very much for that, Fiona.
All right.
Sorry, I was getting feedback there when I'm speaking. No, excellent piece of work that by Fiona and putting that all together. Does anybody have any questions in relation to the first and foremost the sort of presentation input? As I say, we sort of covered the sort of structure at the last full meeting, but we've kind of inverted it around to the way that it should be now. Jeremy, you want to come in?
It's an excellent piece of work, Scott, and it's just something that's needed as an icebreaker at community council meetings and certainly for our first area forums. So it's a lead in to try and get the message out there.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Jim. Anybody else? Any comment or questions? No, perfect. Again, thanks very much for that, Fiona. Really informative and really useful going forward, and it's just simple as well. Simple and effective. Okay, moving on then to the next item on the agenda. We've got an input from Katie Matthews from Sport Scotland in relation to Kits for All.
Hi, Scott. Thanks very much, everyone, for having me along today. I've got a presentation and also a short video. So I'll maybe play the video first, just in case there's any technical issues, if that's okay. So I'll just share my screen with everyone so that you can see that. Is that coming through okay for everyone?
Yeah, we're seeing that. Thanks.
Okay. Is the sound playing okay?
Not hearing anything at the moment.
So no sound.
No sound. No, got pictures.
Okay. So what I'll do is I can also to save time, because I don't want to, I know you've got a busy agenda and things going on today. So what I'll do is I can send out a link to that video. I can talk a bit about it, but I'll send out a link to the video together with the slides so that people can have a look at it at their leisure. when they have time. So I'm not taking up any more of people's time today, trying to get it to work. So I'll just kick off then with the presentation. Bear with me. Can everyone see that okay?
No, not yet, no.
Not yet, okay. Bear with me.
Got it now, Dee. Yeah.
Got it now, lovely. Thanks, Scott. Okay, so yeah, thanks for having me along. Really, my coming along today is a result of initial contact and then conversations with Natalie about what community sport hubs are, some of our project work, and how we can help organisations and areas across Highland to help tackle inequalities in accessing sport and physical activity. And one of those projects was Kit for All. So I will touch on that, but I thought it would also be good just to give everyone a bit of a clearer picture about what Community Sport Hub is, a bit about how we work and some examples of our work across Highland. Because Kit for All is just really one aspect, one project in a big long list. So I have put up here active communities because I think it's almost a more accurate way of really describing who we are and what we do. We are about helping communities to get active and using activity in whatever shape or form that might take to help communities to connect with wider benefits, whether that's social, health and well-being, addressing inequalities, addressing poverty, and obviously we've got rural poverty up here in Highland, and really looking at changing the way we work together. So it was fantastic to have a look and see those leaflets really identifying the Sutherland CPP, your work, what that looks like, because I think it very much mirrors and links in with the sort of things that I'm involved with through community sport hubs and active communities. So really, our focus and my focus as a hub officer is there's lots of great stuff going on in Highland and going on within Highland communities. It's about really shining a spotlight on why we're doing it and who we're doing it for, so that we can really make the most out of the impact that we can get out of it by working together, really sharing resources, because resources are scarce and thinner on the ground. So rather than a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up. It's led by the communities and it's for the communities. So I'll just go through a little bit about what that looks like in Highland at the moment. Okay, so this diagram, this image, in essence is the three pillars of what makes up a community sport hub. The first is about connecting and engaging with communities in order for us to be able to really dig down into what the community need is. And for myself as a community sport hub officer, that is about collecting the evidence, whether it's anecdotal, but also about having the data and access to the data to back it up. So I work with a lot of organisations, whether it's NHS Highland, the Highland Council, local schools, and even within Highland Services, in order to collect that data so that I can help communities to get a very clear picture of what the actual community landscape is, where the inequalities are, and then we can start to look at how we can work together to address them by using physical activity and sport as a tool, as a means. And that's really where the collaboration comes in. So I'm very much a sort of central point for not just within the community, helping organisations to link up together. So I work with CPPs a lot in terms of identifying who are the connectors within a community, who are the best people to reach out to, and who we need to have around the table in order to address any needs that we've identified, priorities that we've identified, in order to work together as effectively as possible, but also pulling in regional and national level resources and expertise as well. And then it's about really using those resources to create sustainability and empowering people that are actually based within the communities themselves. Certainly in the current climate, that's very much around resilience. It's about pulling the resources over to where they're needed the most, and making sure that we're doing that through the leaders that are already there in the community and having a great impact, and just giving them more of what they need to be able to continue that and to expand on it, really. It's very, so really this is about a whole systems approach, and Darren Reid, who is the head of our sports development team, is always saying it takes a village to raise a child. So we very much work within that sort of context, and it's about the people and it's about the places. So Community Sport Hub is really, it's about that collective organisation. And for myself as a hub officer, my role really is about working with the local leaders, as I mentioned, initially around providing support, but also helping to understand really the barriers and to develop those inclusive approaches that are going to help sure everyone has the opportunities to get active, or as I said, to use sport as a tool to address other issues that exist within communities. When I go on to describe the projects, that will maybe start to make a bit more sense. So one of the, oops, excuse me, there we go. So one of the ways that we look to have an impact is through linking up with communities based on projects that are already going on that we can help really help them to expand or help them to take to the next level. So this first picture links in with Kit for All. So this is where certainly my involvement in Kit for All first started. And on the left there you have Carla Urquhart, who is our active schools coordinator based in Alness, and who was working with a community volunteer, Eileen Stewart, who wanted to start up a kit and activewear clothing bank for women and young girls, so that in itself was not a barrier to them being able to participate in any sort of physical activity or sport, whether it was at the leisure centre, at a club, or just an informal group out in the community. So they had started that already. It was up and going. It had already received interest and even some press coverage. However, they were struggling to help it to grow and to really get it out to the wider community. So they approached me, and through Dingwall Community Sport Hub, which is actually a neighbouring community sport hub, because we don't have a hub per se based in Alness, but that's not a problem. They said, you know, what ideas have you got? How can we link in with what's going on through community sport hubs, and in order to achieve what we want to achieve and make this project bigger? So I linked it in with the Women and Girls in Sport Week that we were running through Dingwall, which meant I was able to push more resources towards them. We were able to get storage. I worked with a number of local groups and organisations who then became drop-off and pick-up points for them. So that people, anyone, and this was very much about tackling the stigma around using and taking secondhand activewear or any secondhand clothes, really, so that everyone in the local community knew that if they had something they weren't using, whether it was an old pair of trainers, maybe a top that just didn't fit anymore, or something that just they didn't like and it was sitting in their bedroom not getting used, then they could donate it and someone would be able to get use out of it. So Eileen and Carla helped very much with the coordination around that, but it was very much a local community effort in terms of who all was getting involved. And then I helped to set up stalls throughout our Women and Girls in Sport Week, and then additional ones off the back of that, connected them with the local Syrian refugee group, who were then able to get clothing themselves, and who I was also supporting in getting involved in activities they were interested in over Dingwall Way. So it really just expanded from there. We now have really good connections with them. I'm in the process of getting them outerwear for winter, so that's waterproof trousers, waterproof jackets. We've even got some hiking boots and trainers coming in as well. but the project has also expanded up to Caithness. So the Caithness project is much more based around and driven by the community themselves. I had a number of meetings both within High Life Highland and with community stakeholders, initially through the CPP, around getting an idea of whether or not it was a priority and a need across the board. And through those community engagement conversations and sessions, it was coming across time and time again. It was something that people were already working on, but maybe not collectively, maybe just in isolated ways, or that they wanted to, but they weren't sure where to start. So through that, I was able to then identify. I then had to put a bit of a call for help, because it was clear the scale of it was going to be pretty big. And Caithness voluntary group have now come on board to help lead the project at a local level. So I'm still very much there in the background, supporting, providing resources, and those resources are coming from both Highland Council, from Sport Scotland, from High Life Highland as well. We're very much activating the schools through our young leaders in the schools, through our active schools coordinators and our youth development officers as well. But we're also linking up on the ground through the community and through the leadership of Caithness Voluntary Group with youth clubs, with football clubs through the community sport hub up there, and through other groups, Pulteney Town People's Project, and a number of other small villages who are wanting to try and have drop and pick up locations. And again, it's very much all the language we're using, all the way we are organising this is around making sure that from the offset we're tackling the stigma associated with taking secondhand clothes. We don't want this to be associated with you haven't got it, so you need it, so you're going to have to come and get it. It's very much around making sure this is there for everyone. We don't want clothing, lack of equipment to be a barrier to people taking part in activity. So that's a bit about the Kit for All project and where that's going at the moment. Some other projects are around just getting communities active. We had walking, wheeling, running challenges that again were run in collaboration with active schools coordinators. This one was done during the Ullapool Feel Good Festival. This is a community football festival that was run with schools, and it was supposed to be run with just one primary, but 4 ended up wanting to get involved. We also started up a walking football group for adults off the back of this, because we always try and link school and community events together wherever possible. And that was done in Wick and the surrounding communities and villages in East Caithness. This is a teen come and try racket sports events, again community event, with ages 3 to 83 coming along. We had just under 100 participants in over a 3-hour period, and that was the table tennis club, the local community badminton group, so not a formal club. We had tennis, we had short tennis, and yeah, I think that was it. So all racket sports there. This is UIG Active Schools football group who had no nets. We helped them to get nets, and I'm working similarly with a housing association over in Skylar House to get community nets for them to be able to use, and then we're hosting a small festival in order to signpost them and link them up with local community groups and clubs that they can link to nearby. These are some of the health and wellbeing packs that have gone out to help people get outdoors, have information and a little bit of equipment that they can use to get outdoors. And we ran this along with outdoor football sessions run by Cali Thistle, and also boccia sessions, as well as outdoor walks and information walks that were led by High Life Highland Ranger Services. These are some of the athletes. So this is jumping a little bit up to performance level, who are supported by the Highland Athlete Travel Awards scheme. So where we have elite or performance level athletes, we want to try and support them to be able to attend training competitions that are outside the Highland area. So there's a funding scheme that goes towards that, Community Sport Hub, so it's myself and my colleague for South Highland, administer and facilitate. This is a climbing club who, just a group of people who were interested in climbing, had no idea how to start a club, and came on board with the Community Sport Hub up in Thurso to find out about governance, and we helped them basically form a committee and get themselves started as a club, and then advertise and promote themselves locally. We run workshops based in communities themselves around leadership, whether it not always coaching. Some of it is really geared more towards the likes of committee members. It could be support staff. It could be around leadership skills, and we link in with our own leadership program on that. But also we link up externally. So I've got, at the moment, I'm trying to put together something with local government on the Accelerate programme, which is funding to help organisations to really realise business development growth opportunities that they have, and I'm trying to really focus that on clubs and community groups around Highland. So I'm hoping to do that in the new year. And then this was a community walk to help people learn about what the Ullapool Community Development Trust were doing in the forest to develop mountain biking, but also around archaeology, because they were unearthing a number of villages that were cleared in the past. And then this is another Ullapool Feel Good Festival one, which was beach cleaning. So walking along the beaches, cleaning up the litter, partly for health, but also out of that we developed skipping ropes, which so the material that comes in gets washed, gets recycled by Green Hive down in Nairn, goes back to the Ullapool community. That's the schools and the nurseries, as well as we also hold skipping drop-ins throughout the community, and that's all done for free. So, and there's just some resources that have come through the Community Sport Hub. The most recent one being the Skyland House Community Health and Wellbeing Directory, which was done with the Council for Voluntary Organisations, active travel maps, and again, Community Sport Hub directories. And a lot of that's about making sure, because there's so many great things going on within communities, that we're trying to map it and prevent any overlap. There's less space often in smaller rural communities, so we want to try and make sure that everyone's getting what they need where they can around it, by showing what's on where, and if there's any overlap, then trying to tackle that effectively. I have put a link. This is basically the Community Sport Hub approach set out in terms of how we work within communities. I have put a link to this QR code at the end on the final slide, and so I'll leave that again for people, anyone who's interested, to just pick up on at a later date. And I think this is really one of the first things I tend to do whenever I'm going out into communities or working with new organisations, is just do a bit around community mapping, seeing what their assets are in terms of local facilities and physical assets, where the key places for them are. We call them sticky places. It's just really places that key target groups or people that you're wanting to engage with tend to congregate. Institutions who are key within the local area, so that might be the police, it might be a youth club, it might be a voluntary group. So identifying who they are, and then seeing what we learn out of that in terms of the strengths that already exist within communities, and who the key connectors are. As I've already mentioned, that's really important. It's having the right people around the table, and then what's already going on within the community, because as I said before, it's always very clear there's a lot of great stuff going on. It's just how we can help get word out about that, prevent any overlap. and then seeing who else we need to talk to, maybe at a regional or a national level, or even just across the way in a neighbouring area. So yeah, finally, that's really what it's all about. Hopefully that has given you a clearer picture around what community sport hubs are, or active communities are, and how I tend to work. My contact details are there. I will send the slides out to Natalie together with a link to the videos. I'm sorry that didn't work today, but yeah, happy to answer any questions. So there was a lot to get through there, but happy to answer any questions anyone has.
That's great. Thank you very much for that, Katie. Really informative presentation there, and some really good work, obviously ongoing at the moment, and a really good support for ourselves. I think if gives us some insight of what we could be getting up and running across Sutherland and what help we could get in collaboration with yourself. I think going forward, obviously the challenges of infrastructure, heating, buildings, all that sort of things, the more collaborative we work, the more we'll be able to sustain and put these things together. The kit for all is absolutely excellent idea. It obviously it's environmentally friendly, sustainable, helps us all, and we've all no doubt got things like that lying about our houses that we could be donating to that as well. So it'd be interesting to see how you go about donating as well. But no, really good, really informative. Anybody got any questions for Katie, please? Jim?
Yeah, Kitty, thanks. That was good. I couldn't help but notice that you gave examples in Rochester and Caithness, and there's this big gap in between where we are. Now, not your fault, probably. I would take some blame. I chair, one of the many things I chair is the Southern Sports Council. And I think I'd really welcome the chance to sort of talk to you directly and just see what we can, brief you of what's happening here, and then just see how we can actually collaborate on taking things forward. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Jim, and I would welcome that. I think one thing in terms of you're mentioning that gap, I have had conversations with individuals within Caithness before. I think the key thing here was the conversation I had with Natalie, and the fact that sometimes it needs to actually come from that higher level. So such as an organization, an umbrella organization like a CPP that has that overview of what's going on, where the hotspots are, where the potential is. It just sometimes takes that happening, but it's different in every location. So I don't see it as a negative that it's we maybe haven't had this type of contact before. I think the fact that it's starting now is a good thing, because I've got these examples that I can share with you, and also hopefully you yourself and the other people in the organization are in a place now where you can start to come forward with those really clear ideas of what you want to get out of it, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Jim. Thanks, Katie. Obviously a real opportunity, I think, for us. There is good work already in place that's going on in Sutherland, but basically tying in yourself, I'm sure there's a real opportunity there for us to make more and do more. But thanks for that. Simon, you're next, please.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Brilliant, Katie. Thank you. That was really interesting. I put a question in chat which you've answered respecting beach cleanups, but I just wondered about things like gardening groups, or for example, gardening groups, and we've got a group that's about to set up a project which is about boat building, and whether or not you would be interested in supporting that sort of thing. I mean, it's not just the building of the boat and the coming together to do that, but then it's also getting the boat out on the water. So how far do you stretch that activity definition?
I mean, for me, it's very much about what helps communities to meet those wider needs, and those wider needs for us are identified around social health and well-being, poverty and tackling inequalities, and it's about using physical activity as a means to do that. So certainly in terms of the actual boat building itself, I have worked with a number of groups in terms of sourcing funding. And again, I didn't do that on my own. I did that very much in partnership with the likes of local voluntary groups or voluntary organisations to really identify a really broad range of funding that could potentially link in with what the groups were doing in order to get them started. And then in terms of my main input, that tends to come around the actual activity and how we get active, what that's going to look like in terms of what the group wants to do and where they want to go from there. So the development aspect as well, because sustainability is a very big consideration and part of what I want to do around helping communities to improve and increase their resilience. Does that answer your question?
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Katie. Sarah, you got a question?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Sarah Bowyer from Healthcare Improvement Scotland Community Engagement, and I've just put in the chat a link to the ALICE resource, because that's something from the Alliance. So it's a Scotland-wide service that's free, but it's to map all of these events or groups or activities that are going on, and there was an issue with it not being so good for remote and rural areas because of the mileage radius to, you know, when you put your postcode in, it wasn't always practical, but they have made improvements, and it might be something that your work, Katie, and actually anybody else in the partnership might be interested in, because it saves somebody doing the legwork of going around and checking are all these groups and things still active, and it's up to the individuals to keep their record on there up to date, but it might be something worthwhile to look at, because then it's available you know, to anybody in the Highlands in that one point. So it was just, and it supports all the priorities that Katie's just said about social and health and inequalities and all of that. So it was just to make sure people are aware of that, and you might want to use that as the base for recording all of these activities. But well done, it's really good work you're doing there.
Yep, thanks very much for that, Sarah, and for highlighting that. That's obviously looks like a really good resource for us to tap into as well.
Again, on the resources side of things, actually, just as Sarah has highlighted there, Scott, there's a range of wider resources from the likes of Scottish Disability Sport, from Sport Scotland, but also other organisations across Scotland that other hub officers in my network work with, who have created these generic tools and resources that can be of real benefit to starting to pull things like that together, exactly sort of along the lines that Sarah's described there. And really it can be about just pinpointing which resources is most relevant to each community, what they feel fits the bill for them best. You know, so I send out quarterly newsletters to the North Community Sport Hub network, and that's anyone who's on the network. You don't even have to be being a Community Sport Hub member is free. Being on the network is free. It's just about, really, from my perspective, sharing that information, sharing examples of best practice and projects that are going on that could potentially be of interest elsewhere in Highland. So if that's something, again, here that members of the Sutherland CPP would be interested in, then please do just get in touch. I'm happy to, if there's a central point such as Natalie or Fiona or someone that's best to send that information to, I'm happy to do it that way. Or similarly, if people want to keep in touch or maybe on a slightly more regular basis, then please do just send me your contact details and I'd be happy to add you to the network list. Yeah,
I definitely think we'll take you up on that, Katie. Certainly that the newsletter sharing sort of best practices and ideas that are going on elsewhere. It gives us ideas that we can bring forward. Definitely, that'd be a positive. Jim, do you want to come in?
Just sorry, a question I meant to ask earlier on. Where geographically are you based? Because it's a face-to-face meeting is usually far better than just scrambling around in Teams and looking at something directly. And I've got a complete dislike for thinking for myself. If at all, I try to avoid it if at all possible, and I try to align intelligent women to tell me what to do. So if we could actually sort of if it'd be reasonable to meet up at some point, have a look around, and then just get some instructions, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to meet in person, and yes, I absolutely agree with you that face to face is very different to online. It's great to have the opportunity to do both, given the size of Highland, and I cover the whole of the North Highland, everything from Inverness right up to Thurso and over to Skye. I am based in Inverness, but I aim to get out to all of the communities that I have either projects, contacts and networks, or community support hubs based in that area in several times a year. So I do travel around a lot, although I try and be sensible about what I'm cramming in when I'm actually up and in places. So yeah, I would always be happy to do that. And if I'm going to be up in an area anyway, I tend to try and let people know if they've expressed an interest in meeting up in advance, so that I can try and meet up with a number of people when I'm up their way.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Katie, again. Anybody else got any comments or questions for Katie? No. Okay, thank you very much again, Katie. I say very informative. Looking forward to working with you going forward on behalf of the partnership. More than happy for you to stay on for the rest, or if you want to head off, it's entirely up to yourself. Okay, folks, we'll move on. The next thing on the agenda there is we're going into the sort of full updates in relation to the main themed subgroups. So the first one there is with yourself, Jim, as chair for the fuel poverty. Obviously, a really main thing for us just now, and will be throughout the winter months. So thank you, Jim.
Yeah, I apologise for the typos on the report. I can pick them out, no bother, on paper, but I never seem to see them on screen. Anyway, going through the list of things that are currently on the desk, we have a proposals document thanks to Gail Prince of HIE. We've been trying to squeeze money out of the main energy producers in the area, Scottish Power and SSE. They have been rather shy and reticent and directing us towards individual wind farm community benefit committees. And that's where we really have to focus our attention now, and that's something that Natalie and Fiona are actively involved in fine-tuning the proposals to go towards these bodies. We're very grateful for the UK national direct payments. Even though that may have a limited lifetime, there are problems with households and prepayment meters who don't have ready access to premises with PayPal connection. And I believe that's something that lies with the MP at the moment to pursue and to sort out. It's just a gap in the provision that shouldn't have arisen, but that's where we are. And we're starting to, thanks to Fiona and Natalie again, we've picked out the emergence of a support scheme for households, there are many in this area, which have oil heating. And we just have to try and find our way through how that actually is going to work. Other activities involve the commissioning of Changeworks to just generate hard data on the actual situation that we have here in remote rural areas, and that they hopefully will produce a comprehensive report in the new year, which we can use for future lobbying. This is at the instigation of HEHA, Highlands and Islands Housing Association Affordable Worth Organisation, led by Di Alexander, and they have also commissioned legal advice with a view to taking Ofgem to court over the whole structure of energy charges in rural areas. We've got monthly meetings with the Southern Social Work team now established, and just we have an exchange of information. And it was interesting for me to note that they actually provide warm kits, which they can issue to households to assist people who are really toiling with cold. One of the most valuable things we had recently was a presentation by Rachel McNichol of Ali Energy. That's Argyll, Lomond and Islands Energy, based in Oban. They are now moving into Highland, especially, and I think primarily at the moment, with council tenants. But I think their remit will widen, and I think it's a very viable connection because we're dealing with the same issues. When she went through her presentation, we can recognise everything that she said, and it's just another body with whom we can link to actually provide a core gravity to support the people that we need to support. And picking up on Dave's suggestion of warm hearths, although Highland are a backstop for providing warm premises for people to sit in during the worst of the cold, it's really the communities that are rising to the challenge. And the only funding that we have available is at the moment for this directly available is the Highland Council 450k across the whole Highland area. And a number of applications have come forward from Southern, which we have supported, and some have been successful and others have not been so successful. But it's something to keep an eye on, that we actually try and get a pro rata share by population. We are due 6% of everything by population, and that should be about 27,000. So I'm trying to keep an eye on what's coming in there to actually support the Warm Hearts initiatives that are emerging across our communities. So I think that's the situation as I understand it, Scott. So unless I've missed anything.
No, I don't think so, Jim. Thanks for that update. A lot of good work being carried out by the partnership and that group that you chair there, particularly the work around Di Alexander's doing with the taking off Jim to court with a hee-haw. That's really interesting going forward, because obviously as a county we are heavily discriminated against because of the primarily we're all electric. We don't have mains gas, and that causes massive issues as a county, and the government doesn't seem to take any credence in that whatsoever. So really good that we're fighting the fight at that sort of level. Also really interesting, obviously the community harvest, because we're in the heat of just now, we're facing the cold winter coming. So really keen that any organisations or community groups out there, if they're looking to set up any sort of community hearts, get in touch with Fiona and Natalie, be able to support and assist you in how you go about doing that. But no, thanks for that, Jim. Anybody got any questions for Jim in relation to fuel poverty, please? No. Okay. Ewan, you want to come in?
Yeah, just a suggestion. Just when Jim was talking about, talking to the energy providers there, and they're referring you back to the community benefit from the wind farms. Folk I'm talking to anecdotally in Assynt, they're finding that the worst time is waiting for off-peak to kick in at 11 o'clock for their meters, for their storage heaters, for example. And it's that sort of like 4-hour period between 7 and 11 when folk are really finding it, they're actually, that's when they're sitting about with woolly bonnets and jumpers on, it's the coldest part of the night. Is there any way they can focus on that with the energy providers?
Well, I don't know offhand, but it's something that we can certainly pick up and carry forward. I'm sure Fiona and Natalie will be taking a note of that one and reminding me to chase it up. And it's something perhaps we will refer to Gail as another initiative we can follow through. So any ideas that come forward, we'll do our best to follow them through, Ewan.
Cheers.
Yeah, no, a good point, Ewan. Thanks for that. David?
Just a very brief thing on that. We get quite a lot because we've got community benefit funds here, and sometimes SSE need reminded that the community benefit funds are not their it's not their money anymore. They cannot say what that's spent for, and if we're looking for additional money from them, it has to be additional money, not the money that they've already given, because that's not really the way that community benefits are meant to be spent. So I'll always keep reinforcing that whenever we're speaking to them, but they seem to kind of think that the money that they have gifted, and they have gifted it, is still under their control, and it's not.
Very true.
Yeah, no, again, thanks for that, David. Good point. Any other questions or comments? Okay, no, thanks. Thanks for that, Jim. Staying with you, and on to the next one, obviously, again, it's a big issue for us in our communities as we go through the cost of living. So food poverty, if you want to give us your update on that, please.
Yeah, just as a summary of the way things are, as I understand them. First of all, that really, as with fuel, the attendance at the monthly meetings is excellent, and that's a benefit of having teams. Although face-to-face has its advantages, sometimes when we're trying to get together across a massive area like Sutherland, then Teams does have its significant opportunities. Certainly demand, as for fuel, just continues to rise inexorably. Local initiatives, we have North Highland Initiative, which has 1,000 a whack towards those communities who apply. It seems to be rather a seamless way of getting money out. The Broad Development Trust have pursued £10,000 with the Anne Duchess of Westminster Fund, and that is being distributed via Sarah Morrison. I mentioned already the Highland Council 450k funding under the fuel title heading. And hopefully coming on stream in the new year will be combined wards 1 and 4 funding of around 36k to try and address the needs of people who are stressed by this food poverty. I'll just to pay full credit to the endeavours of CFINE and Mike Sutherland and all that they are doing to get food out into areas. And most recently we have funding from the Westminster Foundation of 100k altogether. Then that's 2 10-week tranches of 50k. And at the moment it's 30k initially going out to the Broad Development Trust to distribute around community groups, and 20k to Kyla Sutherland Development Team to supplement the Cash for Kids programme. And we will review how this is working out early in the new year and pursue another 10-week programme. The Westminster Foundation funding emergency funds must include people under the age of 25, and although these things can be spent on things like food larders, general food relief, including families, as long as under 25s aren't excluded, then they were quite happy for it to be spent flexibly and positively. So I think that's as much as I have at the moment there, Scott.
Okay, again, thanks very much for that, Jim. A lot of good work getting carried out by that group and partnership as well. Just really keen, we obviously spread the word and we get other villages and communities that are not involved to get involved. Obviously, good work around sort of food banks going on in various villages across the county. So keen that we address and we get into as many villages as we possibly can where they're needed. Any questions in relation to food poverty to Jim, please? Yeah, Eileen, you want to come in?
Hello. I'm new to this, so I'm absorbing all this information. I'm chair of the Melvick Community Council, and we're undertaking setting up a new resilience plan at the moment, and certainly I plan to meet with Natalie. I've been mobbed this last week, but I intend to meet with Natalie to look at community fridges, and I think we have identified somewhere that we can have it, because our hall is flattened at the moment, so we don't have a hall. So finding a central place for this has been, a thing. But I think the Coast Guard and youth facility is, I'm waiting on getting an okay out of that. I've been told I will. And then I want to go about the community fridge. But I'm interested in this Westminster Foundation because I could combine that with young people, who will have access to that at the youth club, the youth club premises. Is that the sort of thing that is going to fit?
Well, best bet if I put you in touch with Sarah of Broad Development Trust, and she's actually organising that side of things.
Sarah, and she's from where?
Broad Development Trust.
Oh, the Broad, yeah. Okay.
And we've been working. She's mainly driving that one at the moment. So that's where that goes.
Yeah, it's difficult here because it is so rural, and trying to find somewhere that is reasonably central. That's
a problem. We've been working so far with Marion McDougall at North Coast Connections. She's been our main point of contact with the North Coast, with that corner. But that's still a distance from yourself in Melvick.
Yes, it is. We're really you don't know whether it's Sutherland or Caithness is the best way to go. Do you know what I mean? Population wise, I've had connections now. I've been speaking with the Thurso Food Bank as well, and I think they're quite happy that we can work out something there as well. But it's all in this planning stages right now, and I just want to get on with it. So this is all very interesting. Thank you. So if I'm walking, sorry.
No, thanks, Eileen. And obviously, where you are in the far north there, you've got access to funds that the sort of the rest of Scotland won't have as well, which is probably in a good position from there too. So
yes.
So going forward, if you work you know, with yourselves within the SAC team.
Well, I only took on as chair on the community council there like 2 months ago. So and I'm back living here. I do come from here, but I'm back living here now for 2 years, and I got sort of kidnapped onto this because I did work in this area. So I'm just trying to find out who it is that I make the connections with. So
no, that's great, Eileen, and yeah, no, it's good, and we need people like you to lead the way in the more remote areas. So well done, and thank you for that.
I'm scared of going out at the minute because they're shooting stags and they might get me instead, you know, like so, we'll see.
Okay, thanks for that, Eileen. Angela, you're next, please.
Yeah, just to reply to Eileen, it might be worth you linking up with Betty Hill, because I know that they're looking to set up a community food shed or similar. It would be Jim Johnson that's on the community council.
Yep, no, thanks for that, Angela. And Eileen, your hand's still up. David, you want to ask a question?
No, that question is just a response to Eileen as well. First of all, it's not even a question. You always look to Sutherland more than Caithness, so don't even consider that a question. Secondly, if it's for youth staff, I mean, clearly we as part of the funding that Jim described from the Westminster Foundation, we do the Cash for Kids, and it is for under 25s and stuff like that. So get in touch with either Fiona Natalie or myself. I mean, because Fiona and Natalie obviously work for the trust as well. So when you're having a chat with Natalie, we'll be able to assess whether we can help you with that as well. So no problem at all. We'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
John, thanks for that, David. Katie, you got a question?
Yeah, I guess it's more just a thought rather than a question. Well, no, yeah, there is a question involved. It's just whether or not, in terms of community activities, club activities, again, for me, my head goes back to sticky places. So as I mentioned in my presentation, sticky places are places where people congregate, and specifically the target groups that we're trying to actually interact with and support. So given the amount of expertise and knowledge just on this call alone, you know, do you guys have a sort of list of where those places tend to be and how we could potentially look to get the food there? Not just having the people come to a certain place to get it, because that's one of the things around community sport hubs that and active communities that we've found has made a big difference. So where we've run activities, we've worked with local businesses and local I mean, shops in particular, so supermarkets, to actually, they've then donated. So at the Tane Racket Sports event, we had sandwiches, we had fruit, and we had bottled water. There's a bit of a question mark over bottled water at the moment in terms of how environmental friendly it is with single-use plastics. But the sandwiches, it was so that people could come and have lunch there at the event. It wasn't a barrier. It took that away. There was also no stigma associated with it. They took a sandwich or they didn't take a sandwich. They took fruit or they didn't take fruit. It was entirely up to them. And we had some families who came and took fruit at the beginning of the event, during the event, and after the event. And even with stuff that was left over, we said, you know, take it away with you. It's there for whoever wants it. You know, so it's just an example, and also just I suppose a bit of a question in there in terms of where those sticky places are within the communities. And for these groups, for these people that we're trying to reach. Yeah,
no, okay, that makes total sense. Using sort of the local sort of hub as a focal for all things. Angela, you want to come back in?
Yeah, just going to say that we do have similar projects to that in Sutherland. So the Rural Development Trust, they were running a project with funding from Food Plus, which is a Highland Council grant that's been available. So they were giving out food in a similar way to how you're discussing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Okay, a lot of good points and discussion came from that. Jim, you want to come in?
I think, Katie, it's all the more reason that we actually meet up, and I don't want to kind of presume upon David's hospitality, but it strikes me if we were to meet up some point on the SAC headquarters in our guide, What do you think about that, David? Is that a reasonable request? Then you can meet the whole team and we can actually get a very kind of wide-ranging discussion which might be beneficial for everybody.
That would be fine. As long as we know we can get the community bothy ready and get coffee and biscuits and we can get a wee tour of what we do as well for people that are coming to the area. But that would be absolutely fine. More than happy to facilitate that, Jim, you know.
Okay, sounds like a plan, folks. Angela, you still got your hand up. You want to come back in? The old hand. Okay. As I said, that generated a fair bit of discussion, which is good. Moving on to the next theme is transport. Unfortunately, Richard can't make it today, so Audrey, you're going to cover on his behalf, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Richard did submit a fairly extensive report, which has been circulated, so I'm just going to kind of cover the main themes from that. So we have kind of linked in, I think, with all of the community transport provisions in Sutherland, albeit trying to get them all at the same time is a bit of a nightmare, but we've linked in with all of them. We've also linked in with the Durness bus service, which is a commercial bus. So we tried to work together to kind of map the areas of where there's transport missing. We've also linked in with Stagecoach and the area manager, William, his name is. He attends our meetings. It's been fairly positive with him. He has come back with some suggestions for improved connections provided by Stagecoach. Some of them haven't materialised, I will admit, but we're pushing him. We've also linked in with the Far North Line Community Rail Partnership, who are keen to see an improved rail service in the north, and there are some possibilities of joint working in that respect too. One of the main concerns of the subgroup is actually the lack of patient transport services across the county, and it's quite clear in a lot of areas that you can't get to your appointment in the same day and back again. And there's also the issue of people going for appointments that they can't drive afterwards, so like an eye appointment or anything like that, they can't then get home after the appointment, so it's whether they miss the treatment or pay a ridiculous amount to stay in accommodation or get a taxi or things like that. So there is still quite a lot of challenges which relate to transport in Sutherland, and on the back of this, Richard has actually prepared a kind of Sutherland-wide proposal, which he's going to discuss with the transport group at the next meeting it's Wednesday the 14th of December at 2 o'clock. We're always welcoming new people, so if anyone would like to join, feel free to send me an email. I'm audrey@vgs.scot. But his proposal is just a kind of way of linking all of the services together and ensuring that somebody can get from A to B. So that's me really. Thank you.
No, thanks for covering that, Audrey. See the sort of full updates there for everybody to read. A lot of good work again ongoing with the transport group. A lot of work to be done still, though. A lot of inequality and a lot of pockets in Sutherland that don't have transport. There is real problems out there. I say that highlighting that example there of somebody's choice to go to hospital and they don't know where to stay and they can't get, and you know that's really unfair. And it is a real inequality that we face. Well, thanks for that. Any questions in relation to Richard's update on transport, folks? Nope. Okay. Moving on then to the next one is employability.
Wait. Sorry, I was too slow getting to the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I was just going to say, just as an update, I thought she was going to be here, but Jane Young had some news the other day there that the Aston Community Transport have managed to, they've been awarded funds for an electric minibus starting next year. One of the problems that Jane highlighted was that Energy Trust Scotland are looking to accredit electricians, because obviously they'll be looking for an awful lot of electric charging points across the north, and they're having real problems finding, not let alone local sparkies that are actually registered, but they're having to bring up folk from maybe Manchester to actually do the job. So I posted something on our ADT, our Aston Development Trust Facebook page the other day there about it. So if you know any sparkies that are looking to get accredited to do this, there's funds available. Energy Trust Scotland are looking for them, so that's just the only bit I'd like to add in there.
No, valid point, Ewan. And we've come up before in relation to, we want to move to electric, but obviously as a county with the distances involved and then the infrastructure that just isn't there at the moment. We need a lot of investment around the infrastructure, but with the infrastructure comes the opportunity, apprenticeships, jobs for folk to go, and it has to be local jobs for people to go out and do these things and put these things in place. And you're saying that somebody coming up all the way down from
Manchester,
centre of England, Manchester. I mean, yeah, that's part of the issue. People coming into the county, making money, and then leaving. Okay. Anybody else? Any further points or questions? No. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to employability. Heather couldn't make it today, so Fiona, you're just going to cover Heather's update, please. Still there, Fiona?
Yeah, I'm here. Just being a bit slow today. Yeah, I'm quite new to the group, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to find out later. So if you could just sort of drop me a message and I'll try and get the answers to you. So the group's currently chaired by Skills Development Scotland, and its purpose was to work collaboratively to improve access to employability support and skills provision. It champions a partnership approach and works with a number of stakeholders, and recently in February expanded to become the Sutherland Local Employability Partnership, which is LEP. There's an acronym for you, Scott. Its purpose is to bring together the key delivery employment bodies from across Sutherland and to raise awareness and avoid duplication. We're trying to highlight current opportunities for individuals and where appropriate develop actions where gaps are identified. The group have created and published a number of employability resources with thanks to the partners, and these are published on the Sutherland Community Development page. There's an employer support audit, support for young people, apprenticeships, financial support and training, and the support of the Council's Client Service Coordinator, Fiona Webster, has been invaluable for the group. The group took Stat Explore training in March 2022, led by Teresa Hamilton, who is the Employer and Partnership Manager for the Department for Work and Pensions. And the Pathfinder project has produced an employment, learning and training action plan, which was brought to the group in March 22, and the actions within this plan are included in discussions with the group. Membership of the group continues to be maintained with representatives attending from statutory agencies and community organisations. The action plan currently in development will include activities such as a Sutherland Skills Matrix, apprenticeship schemes engagement with small business focus, volunteering, skills provision, mapping of services, hospitality charter developed by Highland Coast Hotels Limited, training to support local employment needs, jobs fairs in Sutherland, employer support employment, audit Sutherland delivery for the unemployed, returners and retrainers, and review Sutherland employability resources page on the website. At the last meeting, it was agreed to update the action plan, and they're on their way to doing that. The next meeting is in December, and it was agreed to invite the UHI North Highland Apprenticeships Coordinator. I think that's me, Scott.
That's great. No, thanks for covering that, Fiona. I know you're just obviously fresh into that group, so I appreciate you covering that short notice today. Obviously, the full update's been shared on that as well. Obviously, this remains a real issue for us across the county of Sutherland, particularly around apprenticeships going forward, job opportunities. Obviously, ties in closely with the new sort of housing infrastructure theme. Getting housing people for places to live, but they also need jobs, and we need trades to build the houses, and obviously as we discussed around that electricity points. So apprenticeships, jobs going forward, yeah, absolutely key to it. Any questions, Jim?
Just to pick up on the hospitality charter, which I'm delighted to see has been pursued by Highland Coast Hotels. It was originally the idea of Ed Abel Smith for his Cool Lakes development. and it has been picked up by Highland Coast Hotels, and I think it's a very positive thing to provide a solid career base in the hospitality industry for young people. So it's something I would commend.
Yeah, no, good point. Thanks, Jim. Any other points, observations from anybody? No. Okay, folks. Moving on then to Homes for People and Infrastructure. Sitting with Councillor Marianne Hutchison. So obviously this is a brand new theme we put in place. It's obviously a common theme that went through all the locality plans and is a real issue for our communities across Sutherland.
Aye, thank you. As you say, it's a new group, so we're just at the initial stages. We've had our first meeting, which was really well attended. It was great to welcome so many people who represent organisations that really are the essence of what we need in terms of housing supply, homes and infrastructure in Sutherland. We need to pursue this to help our communities to thrive. I'm really grateful to those who attended the meeting and have contributed since then. There's certainly a wealth of knowledge and skills within that group, and I was kind of overwhelmed by just how much is going on already. That was a really positive side. The overriding aim of the group, we decided, was to contribute towards repopulation of the area. We need to, and obviously the measure of that is to see something happening in our schools. We've got so many schools where the roll is dropping, and bad news in that terms. We need to see our school rolls rising. So that's the kind of overriding thing in the background of it. But obviously we're trying to holistically improve and develop the communities that we work in. So I'm looking forward to working with the other councillors just to get a clearer picture of where we are. We've obviously got lots of people in the group who can help us with that as well. Sutherland's expected to suffer a population decline of over 10% by 2040, which is not the same picture Scotland-wide, where this is an expected rise of between 2 and 3%. So it really is an urgent thing for our part of Scotland to attend to and to treat as a real priority. I was at a housing conference recently talking about homes and infrastructure and just saying we really need a real step change for this part of the Highlands. On the positive side, as Ronnie McRae of Community Housing Trust highlighted at the meeting, there are ongoing projects for homes and associated infrastructure in most parts of Sutherland. This group will look to support all the ongoing projects in any way that we can. And we also want to identify communities where there might be emerging need, new ideas and opportunities where we can support people to build the capacity in where they are and hopefully to add to what's there. Also within the group, Martin Thompson of HIE provided us with really valuable information about inward investment opportunities specific to Sutherland and HIE's engagement with the construction industry Highland-wide, which is so important because we don't have enough construction and we need to bring these pieces of work closer to the communities where they're happening. Needing to look at procurement and see how we can boost up local businesses so that they're the people doing the jobs instead of organisations being brought in from outside. Obviously, we'd welcome any contributions to anyone who hasn't been in the group so far and wants to offer, or also I'd like the group to be somewhere where people can come and ask for support for specific things that they're aware of that maybe others aren't, and maybe they know the skills are there within the homes and infrastructure group and people are there who can help, maybe save a bit of time by streamlining where they go to. In terms of inward investment opportunities specific to Sutherland, we do face challenges, but we're also looking at a time of real opportunity in Sutherland. There's a lot of potential work, a lot of potential boost to the economy that we have to kind of plan in advance for. Leslie Ann and Fiona and myself have been working, Natalie, have been working on the action plan yesterday and hopefully we'll have that for our next meeting. And we're just really looking forward to working with all the partners in this group to contribute usefully. I think Leslie Ann and I have got a lot of work ahead of us because we've said that we'll be touring around communities and just trying to find out if there's any gaps, anything that we haven't picked up on. So it'd be really useful connections for us that we can bring back to the group. So thanks very much. I'm sorry I don't have much action to report on, but we've got loads and loads of plans. So thank you.
No, thanks very much for that, Marianne. And yeah, obviously you've achieved a lot in a short period of time there. So well done for everything you've done so far. This obviously came on the back of our last full meeting when we had the housing theme, and it is genuinely a real issue. It's homes that we need for people in the place, and obviously that needs to create jobs for people, and we need to make it sustainable and make our communities sustainable as well. There's far too many homes lying empty and getting rented out to Airbnb or holiday homes. It's a real issue for us across the county, but we also need building works, and we need to create apprenticeships, and we need trades, and we're going to need trades going forward. You'll always need a joiner, you'll always need a plumber, you'll always need a builder, and there seems a real shortage of opportunity for our kids that are coming out of school at the moment and they're moving elsewhere. So no, thanks very much for that, Marianne. Jim, if you want a question?
Just a quick point. Marianne quite correctly emphasised the point of economy to assist a chronic depopulation. But we have a situation in Southern across a number of developments where we have intervention from the environmental lobby. And I think it's important to point out that Nature Scot, for example, although they have a clear environmental remit, have a very significant economic aspect to their responsibilities, which tends to get submerged, I found, in a number of development applications in recent years. So I would hope that we can get a more balanced approach to economy versus environment as we move forward. Otherwise, it will be 10% down by 2040, as Marianne so correctly observes.
Yeah, no, good point, Jim. Thanks for that. Who's next? Margaret, come in, please.
Hello, it was really just to flag up the Sutherland Partnership Profile, the demographic profile, which has been published recently by the Health Intelligence team here in Public Health. I've done one for every community partnership across Highland. And the discussion really about population is looking at the demographics. Over the period 2002 to 2021, there was a 38% increase in the 65 plus age group. The population aged 16 to 64 decreased by 3%, and the under 16 population decreased by 27% in Sutherland. Currently, we have a ratio of 1.9 people of working age to older people aged 65. So for every one person aged over 65, we have 1.9 people aged younger, of working age. To put that in context, if we look at the Highland figure, it's 1 to 2.6, and Scotland-wide it's 1 to 3.2. So while Highland does have an ageing population, as does a lot of other areas of Scotland, Sutherland in particular, I think, has one of the lowest ratios between older people and working age people. And the number and proportion of people over 65 is set to increase, and the working age population is set to decrease. So while it's nothing that we didn't really know, it's quite sobering to look at these figures and the demographic statistics that are available and the projections, and that as I say, there's one of these documents available for each community partnership, which the Public Health Intelligence team has recently produced. And obviously these have the implications for employability, work, and also the provision of care services, as we're all aware. So it was really just to flag up and to highlight that particular document, which my colleagues have recently published. They'd hoped to bring it out a couple of years ago, but they got slightly derailed by the pandemic.
Yeah, no, thanks for raising that, Margaret. That was obviously shared with the sort of key members of the group by the SAC team. I think it was earlier this week or last week. Had a good read through it myself, and it paints the picture really, really well. Really good for us to refer to. It has the stats all there. So, and it just enforces the fact, we really need to do something about this. as a partnership, as communities, and as Highland Council as well. But no, thanks for raising that, Margaret. Any questions on that? No. Anybody who wants to see that report as well, did they just get in touch with ourselves and we can, I think, are you happy for us to share that further, Margaret, are you?
Yes, certainly. At the moment, it's the team has put it on the staff intranet, and they are hoping to try and get it onto our brand new shiny NHS Highland website. But we'll see if that happens. But yeah, if anybody wants a copy emailed to them, I can download and send it to them, and indeed for any of the other community partnerships, if anyone's interested in their neighbours.
That's great. No, thanks for that, Margaret. Fiona.
Just to say that I could pop that on our website if that was okay with you, Margaret.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Ideal. No, thanks again. Anybody got any other comments, observations, questions for Marianne in relation to the housing? Okay. Move on then to Child's Plan and Young People. Jackie Hutchison can't make it today, and Angela Cavarin, who's taken over. She unfortunately was taken over last minute, and she's couldn't make it today as well. So, Angela, you've agreed to cover this for us. Thank you.
Yeah. So Jackie sends her apologies, but I've been working closely with her with regard to the Southern Pathfinder project and the Children and Young People's Action Plan. The meetings are still continuing. There's two areas specifically for developments that they're looking at, which is the under fives, ensuring babies have access to antenatal and postnatal care, and that children enjoy flexible early years care and education. And there's already some work ongoing with that. Another aspect that I've been heavily involved with is about the support for children and young people and their families with disabilities. And I was interested to see that disabilities features on the flyer about Southern Community Partnership. So it'd be quite useful, I think, to link up the working group that we've got established with regard to disabilities with the work that's happening elsewhere within the Community Partnership. And that's it really. Jackie has submitted a written report. So that was just a brief update.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for that, Angela. And obviously there's the work with the handover from the Pathfinder project is obviously heavily weighted to the action plan with respect to the children and young people. So which we'll come to when we get Yvonne's update shortly. So thanks for that. Any questions in relation to the young people's plan? Okay. Moving on then to emotional wellbeing, Sutherland Cares, and you're going to cover this sort of handover of the Pathfinder project. Yvonne, please.
Okay, so I'll start with emotional wellbeing. Obviously, what we've been working on throughout the last year is the gaps in mental health provision, support, activities that support mental well-being, and we've gathered together all of that information, and where there was obvious gaps, we've provided funding to community and voluntary organisations to have support out within the communities. We've looked at bereavement services and where these were identified and where we had gaps, and these were supported and promoted through sutherlandwellbeing.com. Current befriending services have been enhanced. We've got local, regional and national support services that we've been in contact with and worked with over the last year, and we've had several training sessions which we'll go into further when I show you the report. But one of the big gaps that was identified was that counselling service for the adults within our community, so those aged 16 and over. And although that's not a task that was included within the Sutherland Pathfinder project, but we identified a third sector organisation, helped them apply for funding, and so now any person in Sutherland can apply for that free counselling service, 6 sessions, and that's through Dornoch Firth Group. It's advertised on sutherlandwellbeing.com, and I'd like to say thanks for the amount of stuff that's getting pushed onto the website now and onto the Facebook pages. So thank you, Fiona and Natalie, because I think that's making a big difference in the communication links that we have across Sutherland, and being able to let services, well, let all of our communities know what services are out there, because quite often we've got things that are running that people just don't know about. So I think the more that we can promote what is going on, the better it'll be for everybody that lives in Sutherland. Anyway, we will go on to the Sutherland Pathfinder project. It usually would take 6 months to run the Pathfinder from start to end, but Angela and I introduced it a year ago, over a year ago, and it was a very soft approach because we were just replicating what had happened in Caithness, and we didn't actually have the government funding or backing to take it into Sutherland at that point. But probably about April, May, we found out that it was getting rolled across Highland. So then we continued with Sutherland for longer so that we could start those pilot projects and fund them. So I'm just going to share with you my screen. And hopefully someone can put a thumb up when they can see it. It's very slow this morning. I don't know what's...
Yeah, got it there, Yvonne.
Okay, perfect. So, as I said, we're handing it back to the community partnership now, and it'll sit within the emotional wellbeing group. All of the subgroups still have their action plans and are still working towards them. We've heard of some of that work, so it'll just dovetail back into those action groups. There's a table of contents. You'll get this sent to you after the meeting. I'll send it to Natalie and we'll get it out as part of the minutes. But the introduction just explains why the Pathfinder project started, and it was looking at the mental health and emotional well-being of all children and young people in our area. In Sutherland, we did it slightly different because we didn't have the government funding. We looked at the adult situation as well. As it rolls out across Highland, it is just the mental health and well-being of our children and young people. So we did mapping exercises of what was already happening. We had 2 stakeholder adult and community events, and we, from those events and the youth stakeholder event, we drew up a list of priorities that have come from the community and what they were needing to put in place. So I'm not going to read all of these slides. You can have a look through them when you get them. Because this is all of the priorities that came out of those events and where we thought they would fit into the subgroups. So you can see what were the priorities and what were we going to try and do to alleviate these issues that were in different communities. So there's quite a lot of them, priorities when we started. And what we did was drew up a timeline of how we were going to do this work. So I think we've managed within the timeline that we drew up. But just to give you a flavour of what we were looking at, on the left-hand side, you can see the priorities that were set for the children and young people subgroup. And then in the bubbles on the right is what they have done in the last year. So it's about those projects that have been started up. As Angela spoke about, one of the highest priorities, I suppose, for the children and young people was there is currently no activities or services for respite or just going to a community group that's specifically for children and young people with disabilities and additional support needs. So there's a new working group set up looking at that, which involves parents, involves community groups. And as we've rolled out across Highland, we've recognised that this is a Highland-wide problem, not only a Sutherland-wide problem. So we will take that on in a Highland-wide capacity, as well as the good work that the Sutherland Children and Young People subgroup are developing. In the communities and families subgroup, once again, they had their priorities, and then we had the actions that have happened since they started. It's been a very busy group, and we don't actually have a thematic group for communities and families, but any of the actions that have been left that are still to be done will be spread out within the other groups, because actually the communities and families fitted within all the other groups, but we felt it was important to have one that could focus specifically on certain priorities. So the emotional well-being subgroup, we looked at gathering the information, identifying the gaps. As I said, we introduced the counselling service for adults. We got the funding for that. We've populated sutherlandwellbeing.com. We've provided training for community groups, anybody that wanted to attend it. Actually, we've had several sessions of training, but I think there's a slide further on that will show the different types of training. And then the employment, learning and development subgroup were given the same priorities to look into over the last year, and all of the actions that they've taken are on the right hand side again. And the transport subgroup, and I suppose this has been one of the hardest working groups that hasn't seen many fruits of their work, but I think it will all come together. I think transport it's a really hard area, and they've made inroads on several fronts. And I know Audrey said that, you know, Stagecoach agreed, but it hasn't come into place. But we do hope that, you know, all of that hard work eventually leads to improved community transport round our county. So then we look at the training. So we had mental health first aid. Mikey's Line provided 2-day training course in Lerg that was open to the whole of the county. We did sessions with the educational psychologists and the mental health team. There was mental health awareness, suicide awareness, trauma-informed practice. We delivered internet safety, we delivered child protection basic level, and we will continue to do these training courses year on year. We're now looking at mental health first aid training for our 16 to 18-year-olds so that they can do peer support within the high schools. That was one of the priorities that the young people came up with. So at the end of a very busy year, we have now got the action plan that goes from 2023 to 2028. Some of these actions are high level actions, and they will take a lot of work and a lot of time. So it's when the groups are ready to move on to these. There's some actions that will be actioned quite quickly. It looks like a long list, but most of these are within the existing groups and their existing plans, and they're already working on them. But we just didn't want to finish off without thinking about those long-term actions. We'd like people still to keep working on them to see if they can be developed. In Caithness, when we handed back the plan, one of the things that nobody had even started on was that residential care and support 24/7 for adults and young people with mental health issues, that they needed almost like a crisis centre. But since we've come out of Caithness, the work has continued on that, and the group from Inverness, and they were Beechwood Highland, and I think they're called Centred or something. Yeah, Centred it is. I was going to say enabled, but it's Centred. They have now taken over a property in Wick, and they have started providing that care during the day for adults and young people. So they haven't quite got to the respite overnight, but when we put that on as an action plan 2 years ago, we thought this is never going to happen. That's a huge project. It's about having a building, it's about having staff. And here we are 2 years later, the charities come in and they are setting that up in Caithness. So we wanted to leave all the bigger actions still on the plan, that they may come to fruition in the coming years. And we just didn't want folk to forget what were the priorities when we did the original stakeholder. So as I say, there's a lot of detail, but you can have a closer look at it, and the chairs of the subgroups will continue with that work on the action plans that they've got. But Angela and myself would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved in the Pathfinder project. A lot of people have given a lot of time to making things better for especially our children and young people that are living in Sutherland. And it's really heartening that folk are willing to give that time. And the young people have really enjoyed that process as well of being involved and having a voice within the project. So I have a wee video. So this is where it'll probably go wrong. I'm going to try and share it. We put it into the presentation, but well, I'll try. It wouldn't work earlier. I had to go to it separately. So this is what Helen Cairns' group put up, and I think I just wanted to show you what some of the money was used for and the impact that it's having.
Line coming up so far, Yvonne.
Have you got the video playing? No.
No.
When I'm sitting watching it. I'll stop sharing and share it. Computers, who would have them? Great when they're working. Just flick it back to the beginning. Can you see that now, Scott?
Yeah, see that now, thanks.
Okay.
But there's no sound.
It's just a tune in the background, it'll be fine.
You know, sing to us, Yvonne, while it's going on.
Listen, if you heard my singing, although I did sing in a choir once, many moons ago. So that was just to give you a flavour of some of the stuff that has gone on, and I think it probably explains a bit about the project a lot more than I could put it into words. So just a huge thank you to everyone, and we're still here. Angela and I will still be attending. We're going to support Leslie with taking over the emotional wellbeing group, and we're still here if anyone's got any questions, but we're mainly focused in Skye, Loch Alsham, Wester Ross and Easter Ross now. Angela?
Yeah, I just wanted to specifically thank Sarah Kerr for chairing the Communities and Families group, which was a new group, and Sarah stepped up and chaired it and has developed a wide range of activities and services as part of her organisation, Connecting Communities in Helmsdale. So thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you very much for that, Yvonne. Really informative. I've always come into this relatively new, so that was really insightful from my perspective as well. On behalf of the whole partnership, a big thank you to yourself, Angela, Sarah, everybody else that's been involved in the Pathfinder project. Huge piece of work, really, really good piece of work. You can see clear, outcomes there. There's clear actions for all the themes and the work that we need to do across the county going forward, which is really good. A fantastic piece of work, and really good going to you've got the horse's mouth, going to the young people, asking them what they want and taking that on board and putting it into practice. So absolutely fantastic. And as I say, the actions are all now within the theme. So big thank you to you guys, and thank you for your time chairing the groups you've been involved in. Obviously, Leslie Ann's now taking over emotional wellbeing, so thank you for doing that. Leslie Ann, we're also taking that forward now, so thank you to her. Anybody got any questions in relation to that for Yvonne or Angela, please? No. Any other comments, observations? No. Okay. Thank you very much again, folks. That's really good. Moving on now, then, that's the sort of the main themes and the Pathfinder handover covered. Going on to the network group updates. So the first one there is resilience for yourself, Angela, please.
Thanks very much. I can see time ticking by, so I won't be too long. And there's probably nothing that I haven't already said previously in my update, but so I won't go in through all the details. But for anybody that might be on the call that doesn't know me, Angela Simpson, I'm the Head of Strengthening Communities for Caithness and Sutherland with HIE. And I host the Resilience Group, which are online calls with a colleague, Karina Ross. So if I can just focus perhaps on how the groups developed, I suppose, the differentiation between this and why it's a network and quite different to the subgroups. It's very much a network owned by the organisations attending, and they're mainly development trusts now. It's Sutherland-wide, meets monthly, and through the partnership we offer a role of facilitation and sometimes guidance towards opportunities and tackling shared challenges. But the Resilience Group is really a legacy of the pandemic. That's when it came together, however many years ago that is now, 2.5, 3 years ago. But of course, it's just as relevant now as we move into another crisis. And I suppose by bringing together those groups at the time that were leading the emergency response, we ensured that the Scottish Government money that was available, it does have a name, I can't remember what it is, and all the emergency and recovery funding, it was just to make sure that that reached and supported those most in need of the community. So as I say, there were in all 4 phases of funding during that phase, again with lots of acronyms, and about, when we tot it all up, it's at 894,000 that actually reached Sutherland. That is a phenomenal amount, nearly $1 million awarded to Sutherland, but I didn't want to describe it as an award. It's not really a trophy because it's that level of funding, because that was the serious need. It was awarded, I think, because of the out of confidence, because those leading organisations, ourselves, Scottish Government, knew could deliver. So it's the delivery of that emergency response that is the greatest achievement, I think, and the value of the funds simply reflects the scale of the challenge at that time. So a huge achievement nevertheless, but perhaps a double-edged sword, and this bit I wanted to highlight really, in that that phase
help to highlight how important, how pivotal our third sector is in the role of ensuring community resilience long term, but it also highlights the fragility, because we all know that keeping that going requires capacity, volunteer time and funding. So not only to deliver projects that are around community resilience, but also ambitious projects, community aspirations. So also, although that crisis has passed, we're into another one, but I think the group has really sort of redefined itself, and it's a group to support the organisations that are supporting their communities. So that important group of anchor organisations across Sutherland that are, doing most of the coordination in their patch. It's more about collaboration and peer-to-peer support, sharing information. And I guess as a result of that, it's probably why we haven't got an action plan. But that doesn't mean to say that, an action plan and more new collaborative projects or even, sort of pilot projects will develop over time. So at the last meeting, which I've detailed the sort of headlines from that in the written report, we asked the group to reflect on the value, just to make sure we were going in the right direction. And we'll obviously be using those thoughts to shape the agenda in the future. And we also got a little feedback as well about the proposed new forums, which I think is really helpful and just shows that there's enthusiasm for those forums and a role really that those key organisations can play in that. Our next meeting is on the 20th of December, provided everybody's not too busy just leading up to Christmas. We've got a few gaps in representation. As I say, it covers the whole of Sutherland. There's fewer than there used to be, a few gaps in geography, so we'd like to fill those, but ultimately they're each corner, if you like, of Sutherland, and there is at least one representative from each of the new forums. So that's really all I wanted to say.
No, that's great. No, thanks very much for that, Angela. And you can see it's the volume speaks for itself. Nearly £900,000 for taking it into the county. It's a fantastic piece of work. The Sutherland Resilience Group is obviously a key network group within the partnership, and it will remain so going forward as well. Obviously, we need that there for the sort of the higher level, the things that are hitting us hard across the county. We need that anchor organisations meeting together and putting plans in place to try and help all, as you say, all the groups and the communities to combat the issues they're facing. So no, thank you very much for that update. Any questions for Angela? No, okay. Moving on then to yourself, David, for the Sutherland Adaptive and Collaborative Communities update, please.
I just very, very briefly, first of all, to kind of reiterate what you said earlier in the meeting, Scott, although Fiona and Natalie haven't been with us long, I think they've settled in really well, and given that we were in a bit of a holding pattern for quite some time without staff, I think they've picked up and allowed things to keep to get moving forward again really, really quickly. The things that I just like to very quickly highlight, because there's a huge amount of work that they're both doing, but the thing that I think they've really made a decent contribution to that stands out is the profile of the SCP itself, and the work that was highlighted earlier with the flyers and the PowerPoint, but also if you look at the online stuff, and I've got some statistics for engagements up by 100% and 400%. We've got 293 subscribers now for Friday update. The weekly planner and calendar, I think, is a huge success. It's a huge amount of work, but I think it really, really helps for people to see what's going on across Sutherland, and it also helps to plan, because often there's about 5 events happening on the same day. So I think that's a really, really good thing. The new Twitter account is getting followers, and I don't know what Elon Musk is thinking about it, but he's not liked us yet. But everything seems to be going really well as far as getting SCP, and I agree that messaging that came earlier and the ability to try and pull that together to show the difference SCP can make, and the presentation that was made by Yvonne, that is the kind of stuff that we need to be showing more of to show that there is a difference. It's not just us sitting around and having meetings. Some of those quotes from the kids were absolutely fantastic, and that you should all be congratulated, everybody who's involved in that, but that shows the difference that we can make when we work together. So that's fantastic. And to kind of go back to Katie's presentation, another achievement is some of the funding that they've pulled in from Police Scotland and from the council, especially for Ross Sutherland to be delivering rugby classes to boys and girls right across Sutherland. And I think that that's going to be a really good development as well. And it fits really well with what Katie was talking about the activities helping with inequalities, etc. And yeah, as I say, it's been a bit of a period of change with relatively new chair, new staff, new councillors coming on board. So I'm looking forward to actually meeting you all in person one day. Let's see if we can have a meeting in person. I think that would be a really good next step forward, so we can really start to drive forward. The presentation Yvonne gave today is really giving me a bit of energy about the partnership again. So let's see where we can move forward. But thanks again, Natalie and Fiona. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Okay, that's perfect. That's all I've got, Scott.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, David. Anybody got any questions or comments you want to make in relation to the SOC update? Oh, okay. Conscious of time, folks. Moving on to Northwest 2045 to yourself, Ewan. Sorry, Marianne, you want to come in?
It was just very quickly to say really what David was saying. It's been great that Natalie and Fiona are posting so much on social media, because I'm sharing it to all the community council areas, and people have got back saying they really appreciate easy access to all that information. So thank you very much just for that and for everything else, but that was one thing that was mentioned.
Okay, no, thanks for raising that, Maya. Anybody else, anything else want to say? No, moving on then to yourself, Ewan.
Thanks very much, Scott. I've got 3 minutes. I'll try and speak as fast as I can. For those of you who don't know, the Northwest 2045 is a loose collaboration of about a dozen or so acronym-led groups. Our main focus is getting attention of government for the Northwest. We're making good progress at policy level, but aware that we're needing more community engagement, and we've got some planned for January, February up in Durness. Our achievements recently have been, well, I sent a note round to Natalie with just some bullet points. Childcare. Francis Gunn had managed to get some meetings with Mary Todd and Nikki Grant, Director of Education at Highland Council, and we're setting up a trial scheme about to be initiated, which is vital. It's part of that whole employment depopulation. You get a job, you can't get someone to look after your kids. We need to get that solved. So that's in play at the moment. We've had ongoing discussions with Ariane Burgess, who's the housing convener at the Scottish Parliament, about our housing. She's been very helpful. She's aware of what we're doing, and we'll be feeding into the various groups that are talking about housing. We've addressing depopulation in Highland Islands. We've attended roundtable discussions with Scottish Government, HIE, Crofting Commission, Community Housing Trust, DTAS, and a whole plethora of academic institutions. We went down to Helmsdale for the land reform event with the Minister, Marie McCallan, and managed to bend her ear about all the problems we have in the Northwest. She kept edging away from me, but I pursued her diligently, and so we made a good contact there. We, on the back of that, we submitted a response to the NPF4. Sorry, not the NPF4. That we did respond. We did submit a response to the NPF4, the National Planning Framework 4, which took a bit of work, but we also responded to the Land Reform Bill, and were able to help Highland Council inform their response with the work we'd done on it. So that was quite helpful. We've been involved in trying to find, well, other means of working in collaboration. We worked with the Geopark, West of Ross Biosphere, UHI, and put in a bid for a community research network, which we were unfortunate and didn't actually get. But it was, you know, there was something like about 250 applicants for 5 pieces of funding. But we're not deterred, and we'll be going back for more look at that, because we really need to be more aware of what we actually have here in terms. I mean, I loved what was it Margaret from the NHS, Margaret Brennan, said about the data, the demographic data. We need to know more about the Northwest. We need to know about not just the depopulation, but actual economy. So we're looking to work with various organisations. We've got Professor David Bells on side with us, who's Professor of Economics at Stirling University. So we want to really focus in on just how much Sutherland contributes, not just to the Highlands to Scotland and the rest of the UK, but how much actually comes in as well. So that'll be a big project for us. Recently, Ascent Development Trust and Scourie Development Company commissioned a seaweed feasibility report from SAMS, the marine folk down at Oban. We've had a report done. It's looking quite good, and we're going to see if we can expand it from Coyac all the way up to Kinloch Bervie to see if we can actually create, seaweed harvest, seaweed farming, and create some jobs from it. The big problem there is the products, and we look enviously to Wick, who have their seaweed flavoured crisps, and I want to see what else we can actually do with it. Currently, we're working on the response to the agricultural bill, engaging with the crofting trusts throughout the area, which is not always the easiest, but people are sort of starting to take notice. We produced a Padlet showing what the what crofters can actually get out of the funding, what funding replacement will be there. So it's engaging, it's getting there slowly but surely. The Regional Land Use Partnership is coming together. It's meeting all of the Scottish Government's expectations, and we're about to broaden the representation on the board. I'll not go on with the themes. We've got various themes, but we also created a natural capital audit, which is it's not easy reading. So we've managed to co-opt Professor Mark Reid, who's the co-director of the SRUC, Scottish Rural, I can't remember the rest of that acronym, that's the problem with acronyms, and he's chair of the Global Peatland Initiative Research Working Group, to basically condense the report and make it more digestible for everyone. And I'll finish with this one. We've been invited to join the Scottish Government's Community Benefits from Offshore Renewables Working Group. We had our first meeting last month, and it was, it seemed as if government and energy companies were sitting quite comfortably together, just talking about benefits, whereas I think what our communities need is shares rather than just, as David was talking earlier on about, just money sort of piecemeal handed out, their money, how beneficent of them. We need to be looking at shared equity, whatever the model is. As a result of that, we are having a Highland Group meeting next Monday, and I've invited Simon Lee from Far North Development Trust to come on board with us, Joan Laurie from Thurso, and Julia Campbell from Coyac Community Development Company, who of course own their own wind turbine. They raised funds for that, and now they are expecting to pull in about £400,000 a year, which goes directly to their community. So that model itself is something that we'd like to see expanded across the community, with hopefully shares in the offshore. So that's a summary of where we're at the moment. Any questions? Ask away. Cheers.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Ewan. Really informative update there. A lot going on in the Northwest 2045. Some really innovative things that you're looking at there. Obviously, you're obviously sharing that with the group today, but that'll be key things that we take to the forums going forward and share with the local communities across Sutherland. Some really good ideas, as I say, that you guys are putting into play. Anybody got any questions for you?
I doubt it. It's 12:05.
I know. We've overrun, but just move on then. If nobody's got any for Ewan, thanks very much for that, Ewan. Really informative, as I say. Going into community matters and any other competent business. Just a couple of things for myself to start with. Since the last meeting, we've had a couple of joint meetings with the Caithness Community Partnership, looking to carry out that more frequently. The meeting put together by Fiona and Natalie earlier this week, and that was really beneficial, just getting to know who our counterparts are. There's a lot of commonality between the two counties, so that'll be really beneficial going forward, as I say. We're still working on the single plan for Sutherland, so we've incorporated all the locality plans at the moment into a single plan, and we'll just be adding to that to make that a single plan going forward. And just in relation to the Caithness meeting as well, we had meeting with the North Sutherland Fund and the Caithness and North Sutherland Regeneration Projects. We had a couple of inputs from them at the meeting this week, but I also had a separate meeting with them earlier on this month, or last month it would be now. So that again was really beneficial, and there's funding available there from north of Sutherland, but they're starting to look to roll it out potentially to other areas too. So we don't want to miss out on that opportunity. So a lot of work going forward with them too. That's it for me. Anybody else got any other business they want to raise? No. Okay, all good. Really, we've overrun today, but I think you'll agree it's been really beneficial. Some really good updates there. Really good handover from yourself, Yvonne, in relation to the Pathfinder. Really appreciate that. Again, thanks again. And thanks to everybody that's involved. Thanks for everybody's contribution. You know, I'll appeal to everybody in the communities, get involved in your communities, come and speak to us, see if we can help and assist, speak to Fiona and Natalie going forward. So no, thanks very much, folks. And the next full meeting will be on the Friday the 3rd of March with a pre-meeting on the 17th of February. And totally take on board David's previous comments and others around face-to-face. So we'll try and incorporate a few face-to-face meetings prior to the next full meeting. But thanks very much again, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a good weekend. And we'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Bye.